Clemson fans, welcome back to another edition of the Clemson Sports Show. And it's a beautiful day. It's Friday. It's a day after Thanksgiving. My belly is full. I just had a plate of leftovers, which you can comment down below. I think that's the best, in my opinion, that's the best meal, the day after Thanksgiving. When it's cold, you heat it up. You know, I feel like that's the best one. That may get some pushback there, but in my opinion, leftovers is the best part of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I certainly love my leftovers. You can't beat day of either, though. I mean,
Yeah.
man, both days are just great. You got football on all day, college and NFL last night. The Egg Bowl was a little bit of a letdown, but still a fun game. Got Texas and Kansas State playing today. Big North Carolina NC State game Friday night. So, man, it's a great time of year. College football, college basketball, NFL, NBA, everything's going on. So, yeah, I love this kind of time of year.
Matt, I really wish you wouldn't have brought up football yesterday, knowing that I'm a Cowboys fan, knowing what I was subjected to, because that was gut-wrenching. You know, talk about rooting at Thanksgiving, that really had me getting ready to just leave my family household, take off. I was really done with that. But we're not here to talk about the Cowboys. We're not here to talk about Thanksgiving, although I wish everyone had a great Thanksgiving with you and your family. We're here to talk about Clemson versus South Carolina, the last regular season game of the season for the Tigers. Let's get right into it. But before we do, we have to mention, Matt, we didn't talk about it on our last episode, but in the latest college football playoff rankings, Clemson checked in at number 23, you know, back in that top 25. You know, is that where you think they should be placed? Should they be a little bit higher?
Sounds about right to me. Maybe a little higher. I don't know. I mean, if you look at the whole body of work, that was really the first, I would say, good win that they've had this year. Really good win, at least, that they've had this year. The Louisville win was a good one as well. But just as far as, a complete team game effort, offense, defense, everyone just kind of clicking together. Obviously the offense played by far and away its best game of the year, rushing for over 300 yards. But yeah, I can understand pollsters and even the playoff committee wanting to see a little more before they move Clemson into the top 20, but definitely think the Tigers deserve to be ranked. And glad to see that. Thought it was good, at least in the playoff poll. I know they weren't ranked in the coaches or AP poll, but makes sense that they're at least ranked in the playoff poll.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at Clemson's season with some context when taking into account their three losses. Their first loss of the season was 10-3 to the number one team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs. So you played the best team in the nation by far, their best game of the season. You know, Georgia has not had that tough of a time in any other matchup this year. Then you go on the road and you play double overtime against NC State. You know, that was a difficult loss. And then you have Pittsburgh as well, which was on the road. So those are two quality opponents that you lost on the road. And it's really tough. It's kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation with Clemson. You've got a team that is at home. I think they beat Pittsburgh and NC State. But then on the road, you have a team that's a little bit susceptible to some mistakes, to some turnovers. You know, do you kind of feel that way, Matt? Like if Clemson had gone those games against Pittsburgh and NC State at home, do you think they would have won those? And what does that kind of say about the quality of the team?
Yeah, it's definitely a team that plays better at home than it does away from home. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They're 2-3 away from home this year. I think that's a reason why some South Carolina fans are kind of hopeful going into this game, just hoping that Clemson will continue to struggle some in those road environments. And if you look at the two wins, I mean, it wasn't dominant performances by any stretch. I mean, the Syracuse game, close 17-14 win. Syracuse misses a field goal as time expires, or at least with about 30 seconds or so remaining. And then the Louisville game, Malik Cunningham goes out. I feel like that really shifted the game, and Clemson's able to come back and win. So definitely deserve credit for those wins, but there's no doubt that the team's been much better at home. The defense has played better at home. Offense has been better at home. Just all around, just played much better. And yeah, I think they probably do find a way to win those games if they're at home.
Yeah, it's a weird team to assess. I think I've said it before, but this team could easily be 6-5 right now, and this team could easily be 10-1. I don't think I've ever really seen anything like it before, where you have a team that could be, like the difference between being in contention for the ACC Atlantic this late in the year or just being completely out of it, looking forward to 2022 and just hoping to make a bowl. It's really been crazy to see the ebbs and flow of this year, which is going to end with a matchup at South Carolina. Obviously, there's going to potentially be a bowl game down the line and maybe a conference championship. We'll see what happens there. But the regular season ends in Columbia. Matt, What does everyone need to know? What do all the Clemson fans need to know going into this game?
Man, that's a loaded question. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I think it's a cool environment down there. Obviously, the game didn't happen last year, which was disappointing, I know, for everyone. So I'm excited to get down there to Columbia. Check out the game. Should be a fun atmosphere. I know it's sold out. Tickets on the secondary market are going for well over $100. So it should be a fun one. I think both of these teams ended up being better than anyone expected, at least from where they were early on in the year. I mean, South Carolina making it to a bowl game is a huge accomplishment for Shane Beamer in year one. And then Clemson turning its season around after going 2-2, now to be 8-3 at this point in this game, 6-2 in the conference. Won 4 in a row, won 6 out of 7. I mean, it's really a great accomplishment for Dabo Swinney. And, I know a lot of people have said this is the best coaching job he's had of his career, and it's hard to argue with it. Just maybe not the best one that he's had. I would probably put that 2016 and 2018 years when he won a national title above this. But at the same time, just keeping this team together, dealing with all the injuries, continuing to battle, not letting guys quit. And now you look up and you still have a chance for the ACC championship. You have a chance to keep your 10-win streak alive if you beat South Carolina and win a bowl game. So, man, this is a great job by Dabo and his staff this year. And I think it adds a little intrigue to this game that both teams are at least playing better than it looked like they might be based on what we saw early in the year.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that 2018 season where you go 15-0 with a true freshman quarterback. Yeah, I'll probably take that one over this year, but it has been an impressive job considering all the injuries they've had. Matt, here's where I have trepidation with Clemson in this game. Although I do think they're going to win, these two things do kind of scare me. One, South Carolina has 4 defensive TDs on the season. What has been arguably the difference in the Pittsburgh and Georgia games? What was the difference in those two games? Interception return for a touchdown, giving the opponent points. That kind of scares me. Also, South Carolina's been really good at home. I don't think many people know this. South Carolina, except for that Kentucky game, which Kentucky's having a really good season. They're 8-3 right now. They played Kentucky to a 16-10 ball game. That was their only loss at home this season. They've beaten whatever's left of my Florida Gators. I say my Florida Gators because I went to school there. But they beat whatever's left of the Florida Gators. And then they beat Auburn most recently. So they feel a little bit confident at home. In my opinion, those are the two things that kind of scare me the most heading into this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the big thing, first of all, I don't think South Carolina is going to have any success moving the ball against Brent Venables in that defense. I just think that Clemson's too good defensively. South Carolina has a couple of playmakers. Quandre White at running back is really good. Kevin Harris led the SEC in rushing last year. He's a really good player. And then Josh Vann at receiver can go up and make plays. But outside of those three, that's about it. Jaheim Bell at tight end is a pretty good player as well. But there's just not a lot of talent on that offense. There's not a lot of guys that scare you. And I really think if you can make South Carolina one-dimensional and make them have to throw the ball, which I expect Clemson to do. I mean, Brent Venables is a mastermind at taking away what you're best at. So if you can make them one-dimensional, I think that they're going to just have a nearly impossible time moving the ball with any success against this Clemson defense. So, I'll say that to say that if you're Clemson on offense, you just can't screw it up. You can't turn the ball over. You can't make mistakes. You can't have a bad snap or have DJ take his eye off the ball and lose a snap or, hold the ball too long and get stripped or whatever it may be. I think the Clemson offensive game plan should just be real conservative, take care of the ball, don't make mistakes, and just get out of there with a win. I just don't think South Carolina can make the plays it needs to offensively to pull off this win unless Clemson gives them a lot of help. So, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a tough place to play. It's a tough environment. They've been very good. I think South Carolina's top 10 nationally in forcing turnovers this year. So they've been very good forcing turnovers. So for Clemson, the big thing is just protect the ball and don't make the silly mistakes, and I think you win.
Yeah, you talked about South Carolina being able to turn over the ball. They have 14 interceptions on the season. That definitely scares me just a little bit. DJ hasn't had a super high volume of interceptions, but he also hasn't had a lot of touchdowns to make up for those. So it's really a kind of a slim margin that you can work with there with how he's been performing this season. That's why for me, it's going to come down to the running game. Clemson just rushed for 333 yards on the ground. You got to be able to take advantage of South Carolina's defense. They're number 96 in the country with 130 rushing yards allowed per game. You need to establish a tempo. You need to win time of possession. You need to take the crowd out of the game. Guess what? if you're a 21-year-old South Carolina college student, like, I feel like that's going to be their biggest supporters on Saturday, their loudest supporters, those students in the student section. And you see a team just running the ball, converting on third down. And that's another point I want to bring up. South Carolina opponents are converting 44% of their third downs this year. And that's been a struggle for Clemson. So if you're able to run the ball, convert third downs, you take the crowd out of the game. You absolutely take them out of the game. In my opinion, that's going to be another area that Clemson's going to have to win. And you're going to have to win on rushing the ball, which should be expected coming off the performance you just had. And you need to also convert on third down, which they haven't been consistently great at this year, but South Carolina has been just god awful at just allowing third down conversion. So that's a huge aspect of the game for me.
Yeah, and I could be wrong. I do think Clemson's going to have I wouldn't say a hard time running against South Carolina. I just don't think that they're going to be able to do the same thing that they did to Wake Forest. I mean, Wake Forest is just such a bad tackling team. They're undersized up front. They're undersized really across the board on defense. And so, Clemson really just lined up and physically just manhandled them and moved them out of the way. I think South Carolina has a better defensive line. They've got some guys, Kingsley and Enigbare is a projected first-round pick, second-round pick type of guy. Zach Pickens is a player Clemson recruited. So they have some talent on that defensive line that I think will be able to at least try to slow down that running game some. So I don't think it's a game where Clemson just lines up and runs, right at them and finishes with over 300 yards rushing or anything. Now, if that happens, the game's not even going to be close. I mean, we're wasting our time talking about it. If Clemson can establish the run, South Carolina has no chance and the game's over. But I do think South Carolina is personnel-wise has a better chance of trying to load the box and make Clemson make plays in the passing game than Wake Forest did.
So what scares you the most about this game? I talked about the defensive touchdowns that South Carolina has been able to have this year. That could be a momentum changer in this game if they're able to get a defensive TD. I talked about them playing pretty good at home, it being a night game. What concerns you the most?
I think it's just if Clemson can't handle the environment, if DJ gets rattled, if he starts making mistakes, if South Carolina gets an early lead and Clemson starts pressing, I mean, there are a few ways I see South Carolina having a shot to win this game. There aren't many, just being quite frank, but there are a few ways I think that the South Carolina has a shot. And I think it's more about what Clemson does wrong than it is about what South Carolina does well. If DJ makes a mistake early, if DJ throws a pick six, if Kobe Pace fumbles, which is something, he did last week, if Clemson makes an early mistake, lets the crowd get even more into the game than it's already going to be. If DJ starts feeling some of that pressure, and it's a young offense all around. I mean, it's not just DJ, there's a lot of first year starters throughout the offense. At receiver, you're probably going to start 2 freshmen. So, I mean, it's just a young offense right now for Clemson with so many injuries. And, if things start going bad early, just not letting it bother them and keep their head in the game and just don't make that critical mistake.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, the one thing you have to say about Clemson is they've been able to weather the storm throughout this whole year. They've been able to weather shooting themselves in the foot a few times. But what's kind of helped them out in some of those games, some of those close games, has been playing at home. Though I do like what I saw against Louisville. I thought that showed a lot of gut, being able to pull out that game despite Louisville getting right down to their 1 yard line and having 4 downs essentially to crack the end zone. So I kind of like the fortitude that Clemson's built up over these last few games. They've won 4 in a row. They're playing with a swagger. They're playing with a level of confidence that I don't think they were playing against Georgia Tech or, early on in the season. So, yeah, I completely agree with you there. Last thing that I kind of do want to talk about just from a matchup perspective is looking at Clemson's rush defense, which is one of the best in the country against what South Carolina will potentially do, which is rely on the ground game. You don't envision them doing well in the passing game. How do you see that matchup playing out?
Yeah, I just think that Brent Venables is so good at taking away what you do best that I think South Carolina is going to have trouble running the ball. And look, I mean, it is a talented group of running backs. Like Devin Harris and Zaquandre White are 2 really good players. But I just don't think Brent Venables is going to allow them to do that. I mean, Clemson has a very good defensive front. Linebackers, James Skowski and Balen Spector are very good against the run. Trenton Simpson's good against the run as well. He's not afraid to bring extra hats into the box and leave his corners on an island and try to just do everything you can to stop the run. So I just have a hard time seeing South Carolina running the ball. Now, those guys will make some plays. White in particular is the guy that, if he gets out in the open field, watch out. I mean, he's electric with the ball in his hands. He's super fast. He gets running downhill. He can make you miss. So, that's one guy I think to watch out for sure. But just overall, I have a hard time seeing, them doing much in the running game.
I also want to get your thoughts on this too. South Carolina has allowed 28 sacks this season. What has Clemson done really well over these past few games? They've been getting to the quarterback, sacking him. Sam Hartman just had an absolutely brutal day against Clemson. I think the final count was 8 total sacks. They credited one after the game, so they had 8 total sacks against Wake Forest. South Carolina is below average when it comes to sacks allowed. Do you see that playing a huge factor in the game as well?
Sure, yeah, and I thought it was interesting. South Carolina offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield said this week that they're going to have to make plays in the passing game, which in some ways I agree with them. I don't think Clemson's going to allow them to run the ball, and so he was kind of saying like, yeah, we're going to have to open it up. We're going to have to take some shots down the field if we want to win. So in some ways, I get what he's saying, and I like what he's saying. But on the other way, man, that could be big trouble if you're counting on your passing game. Just you mentioned the pass rush, so for sure Clemson's going to get after them. I think South Carolina's going to have a hard time protecting. Trent Simpson's turned into an elite pass rusher. You've got Xavier Thomas, you've got Miles Murphy, Tyler Davis, all trying to get after the quarterback. So I think you're going to have issues there. But then Jason Brown, last week against Auburn, just made a critical mistake, threw a pick at the goal line. He's made a few mistakes this year where he seems like he's maybe misreading things or gets a little confused. And so that's hard trouble. Or that's not good news. That's trouble against the Brent Venables defense. He's just going to throw so much at you, bring blitzes from everywhere, disguise coverages. He's going to show you one thing, the ball snapped, and you're going to see another thing. So, I think for sure if South Carolina's plan is to try to attack through the air, that Clemson will get plenty of sacks on Saturday.
Well, let's give ladies and gentlemen, people who are watching this on YouTube, who are listening to it on a podcast, let's give them what they've been waiting for. Our final score predictions. I just have to say, Matt did pick against Clemson last week's, and Clemson won the game. And I picked against Clemson in the Louisville game, and Clemson won the game. So are we going to be on the same page here, Matt? What are you going with? What's your final score prediction?
Yeah, I'm taking Clemson. I think you said earlier you are as well. I'm taking Clemson 23-10. I just, like I said, I don't think South Carolina can score on Clemson. I don't think they can move the ball consistently. And I trust Clemson's defense, or I trust Clemson's offense against South Carolina's defense much more than I trust South Carolina's offense against Clemson's defense. So I'll take the Tigers in the matchup, assuming DJ doesn't make critical mistakes and they take care of the ball, which, hey, at this point, maybe we shouldn't assume that. But I am going to assume it. Clemson, another thing I kind of was looking at earlier is Clemson's turned it over multiple times in 4 of the last 5 games. That's not something you want to go do on the road playing your rival and give them some momentum. But with that said, I'll take Clemson to win 23-10 and just behind that Brent Venables defense, kind of keep things rolling along. What about you?
I'm going to take Clemson 27-19. I think South Carolina is going to get 4 field goals, 1 touchdown. They're going to get into that 30-yard range, but Clemson's defense is really going to lock down and hold them out of the end zone. So I've got it being a 27-19 game. I think it's going to be relatively comfortable for Clemson. And the main reason is I just don't see a strength on South Carolina's offense that makes me concerned going up against a Brent Venables-led defense. I just don't see one area of the game where South Carolina definitively has the edge that Clemson should really be scared about. I mean, both teams are coming into this matchup. Clemson's 15th in total defense, South Carolina's 48th. Clemson's 95th in total offense, South Carolina's 111. I'm just not like with Wake Forest. It was, Wake Forest passing attack. They've got a really strong passing attack going against the Clemson defense, which had given up over 300 yards to a backup quarterback against Boston College. That's where you were nervous about. This one here, I just don't see any individual matchup, any group matchup where I get nervous about. So I'm going Clemson 27-19.
Yeah, I like the pick. I don't disagree with you. So we'll see what happens. The only thing I disagree with, I almost went 27-10. I don't know that South Carolina scores 19 points, but we'll see. Maybe that's where those turnovers kick in.
Yeah, that definitely could be. I don't know how it's going to play off. I'm not going to go that far with my prediction. I'm not going to go out and be Tony Romo, call out the plays before they happen. But I think it's going to be 27-19. And if it does, I'll give myself a pat on the back. And if it's 23-10, you'll give yourself a pat on the back. So let's
Sure.
go into the implications of this win before we wrap up everything, Matt. If Clemson wins, we know that tonight, depending on when this video is released, we're hoping it's released before the North Carolina NC State game. That's going to have the biggest ramifications of Clemson making it to the ACC championship, because if NC State wins, Clemson's out of it. Doesn't matter what happens tomorrow. So let's say NC State loses today and Wake Forest loses tomorrow. Clemson makes the ACC championship. Which do you think is a more realistic possibility? Clemson making it to Charlotte next month or not?
I wouldn't take them as a yes right now. No, I mean, I think that it's more likely that they don't make it. NC State is favored tonight. Wake Forest is favored Saturday. So I think the most likely result is a team other than Clemson making it. But you never know. I mean, Clemson has had plenty of good fortune go its way during this streak of 10 win seasons and playoff streak and all that kind of stuff. They've had a few breaks go their way too. So I know it wouldn't be a surprise at all if Clemson ends up making it to Charlotte, and I'm certainly think it's possible, but I would bet no at this point.
So we're going to get into this a little bit later. We're going to be promoting a deal that we have, but on the Tigers Den message board, which you can get access to using a pretty cool Black Friday deal that we're running right now. You mentioned a couple of bowl games that you think Clemson may get to, assuming they win this game against South Carolina. Take me through it. What should Clemson fans be looking at? What bowl game should they be looking at?
So the most likely scenarios, assuming Clemson doesn't win the ACC, are the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando, and the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. So obviously one of those is not like the other two. San Diego would be a heck of a trip for a bowl game, but that's what it's looking like right now. Those are the kind of the top tier bowls for the ACC, and Clemson will be in that top tier group, assuming it's not in a New Year's Six bowl and doesn't win the ACC. So some interesting destinations, obviously not the playoff like I think most of us expected at this point in the year, but still some pretty cool spots for possible bowl games.
Should Clemson fans be disappointed? Because when you read out Cheez-It Bowl, Gator Bowl, and those type of bowls, that's not what Clemson's used to playing in, at least for the past 5 years. Should they be disappointed by this?
I mean, maybe if you would have told them before the season, hey, you're going to be playing in the Cheez-It Bowl in December or January or whatever, they wouldn't have been excited for sure. But if you'd have told them at 2-2, hey, you're going to end up winning, only losing one game the rest of the way, and you're going to go to the Cheez-It Bowl with a chance to keep your 10-win streak alive, I think most of them would have taken that. So it depends. I guess it depends on if you're looking at the glass full, glass empty, glass half full, glass half empty approach, which way you're looking at it. But I think most fans would be pretty happy just with where the season was at one point if Clemson can end up in one of those three bowls in the year, which they will. I mean, it'll be one of those three, assuming they don't win the ACC and end up in Atlanta with the Peach Bowl.
Remember, context is important, because I remember this a couple months ago, after the loss to NC State and, going down the line, looking at some of the games that they were playing, people were concerned that they were even going to reach 7 wins on the season, someone wondering if it's going to be that close with being bowl eligible. Clemson's right in the thick of things with the ACC Atlantic, although they're far below NC State and Wake Forest because their destiny depends on them. But to be even in this position, if you would have told Clemson fans a few weeks ago that that's where they were going to be after the Pittsburgh loss, being 4-3, I think they would take the result that they're in right now. But, comment down below. Let us know what you think of Clemson's season. We're expecting to win. That would put them at 9-3 in the regular season. So let us know what you think a 9-3 regular season, potentially a 10-win season would mean to you, considering everything that's gone on this year. And also join the conversation at the Tigers Den message board on ClemsonSports.com. We're running a great Black Friday deal through Cyber Monday, 50% off our annual price tag, which is normally $100 a year. We're bringing it down to $50. So be sure to take advantage of it. Join, get access to all the in-depth coverage that we're going to be providing, both with the football team, the basketball team, baseball team later on, and then also with recruiting too. Recruiting never stops. It never ends. We're continuing to hit the road. So be on the lookout for that. And until next time, which will be after the South Carolina Clemson game, we wish you all very happy holidays. Hopefully you had a great Thanksgiving, and we're going to be tuning in this upcoming weekend with you all after the game. So stay tuned to ClemsonSports.com.